Welcome back to Ribbon Candy Hooking. I'm Deanna. Happy Friday night. Happy cocktail night. I was just I was just running down to the car to get my coffee cup full of wine. Sauvignon Blanc. I just love a good dry white wine. I was going to do a cocktail tonight, but I just wasn't feeling that sweetness or that heaviness. Happy Friday night. Everybody, you made it to the end of the week. You are now on the threshold of happiness, right? Unless you work over the weekend, then I'm sorry to say that. That just turned the knife in the wound, didn't it? Let me have a sip and let's get going. We have a great trivia night ahead of us. I'm going to set up the ring light in a minute. I think Jay is going to be coming in. He's got his antique stuff in a couple rooms over again, so maybe he'll set up the ring light for us because I feel like it looks very dark in here. What's going on? It was a beautiful sunny day, and it's not even that late, and I feel like it is looking mighty. I don't know, grim and dark and a bit depressing. Let's not have that. Mm-mm. Oh, that's not that good at all. We're gonna make it work. How are you doing this Friday? Let's see which buddies are here. I have a bunch of things to tell you, and then I want to get going on the episode. Oh, it's been a lot lately. Okay, Anita, good to see you. Happy Friday night. Great to see you. Melissa, great to see you. I love your new profile picture. That's all stocky, isn't it? I finished Madame Blanc. I really want to watch Sister Boniface. Okay, I'm not going to rant, right? I'm not going to rant. I'm just going to say, what is the deal in modern times with so many different, I don't even know if they're called channels, like Netflix, Hulu, BritBox. I mean, there's like 100 of them. And I always have, I have 99, but the thing I want to watch is always on the one that I don't have. What is going on with that? I just don't understand how we've come to a place in 2023 where everything costs so much and the cable bill is extraordinary, and yet I can never. I had to download even a free trial to be able to watch Madame Blanc, and now I'm like, all right, Sister Boniface is next, and they're like, you haven't got that one either, and I'm like, are you sure? Because the bill is a lot every month. I pay cable at two different places. Are you sure? Isn't it frustrating? All right, I'm going to let that go and move on. Robin, I cannot wait to see your pictures with Kaz and Carol. I know Carol was the picture taker. You were at the rug show. It was the fairy tale rug show? Was it that? Was it the fairy tale exhibit? You have to tell me what date in the fall that Fiberfest is again. So I'm looking forward to those pictures. No pressure, Carol. But when I have them, I'm going to work a full episode around them. And I want to remember last year we did at least one episode when those three ladies, our Wisconsin buddies, went to the Fiber Festival in Wisconsin, and it looked fantastic. By the way, the Connecticut Fiber Fest is tomorrow, and I forgot. I didn't have a stall there or anything. I was just going to show up and hang out with my buddy Naomi and stuff. And I made other plans tomorrow. And I'm happy with the plans that I made. So I'm picking up a bunch of wool, and then I'm going to speak to somebody at a quilt store here in Connecticut about teaching, and all of that's nailed down. So I wouldn't change that ever. But I do need to check and see if the Fiberfest. I don't know if anybody knows about the Connecticut Fiber Festival, if it's also on Sunday or not. Because if it were, I would go on Sunday. Anyway, there's so much stuff going on. We're getting into that time of year where there's stuff, and there's going to be stuff right up through the holidays. So we have a lot to look forward to. Not that you need a reminder of that. It's just exciting to say it out loud. Andrea, great to see you. Cheers, my dears. Matcha Tia Maria, again, you are so elegant and sophisticated with that cocktail. I'm telling you, I'm going to have to recreate. I forgot. I'm going to have to recreate that for next week because I want to drink the same thing. It seems like this is maybe something we should try doing. This is one of the reasons I want a recipe book for us, right? Because I feel like it would be even like another layer of magic for me in my corny way, to know that I'm tasting the same thing or eating the same thing as you. Is that creepy? Is that creepy to say that out loud? Because I just feel like that. And then I had this other thing. I was having some really big thoughts. Remember Jack Handy on Saturday Night Live? Deep thoughts. I'm not going to say the big one because I'm afraid somebody's going to steal it from me. Not one of you, but maybe, who knows how these things happen. Um, I had a really good idea, but a sub idea within that idea is I'm returning to that thought that I need to have a store soon. I just signed up for another year in the studio space, which is it's like 1,200 square feet in here, massive. And I think I can create some space. It's up like two flights of stairs without a break. It's like 20 steps without a break. So it's not handicap accessible at all. It's like rife for like a really bad backflip coming up these stairs, but it's not impossible. There's two sets of stairs, and they're both the fire escape actually I think has like an interrupted step. So maybe that one's even easier. But anyway, I was thinking I could actually do classes in here and set up at least one room as a kind of a shop. And maybe that's something to do as soon as I'm almost at a place with the book project where I feel like it might be okay, right? It's going to be the best book ever, but I feel like I might be okay too. So I'm thinking about that, but I'm also thinking about having a store, and I want the kind of storefront where there's other things for sale, and people can say like, oh, I make this or I make that, and there's like a little gift area over here where there's other stuff besides rug hooking or rug making stuff and other fun stuff, and there better be a kitchen because I really want to, for people who are local to me or people who are visiting, I really want to like once a month do like a potluck, right? I really want to do that and come up with a different recipe book every year and work on designs and work on hooking and bring food and eat together like every month, like clockwork. To me, that would just be a reason to start stockpiling those old, what were those old ceramic, those chafing, not chafing dishes, just the flat ones from the 70s that had like that dimpled kind of glassy top, you know what I mean? And you turn the burners on and you just put your pot there and you push the dining room table up to the wall or whatever. If you were like us, all the tables and all the chairs out of the way so people could just come through with their plates, right? And then get a little bit of everybody's food. Oh, God, does that sound like heaven or what? Doesn't that sound like heaven? And have places where people can like trade stuff or leave stuff for somebody else. I just really want that kind of a space. So I've been thinking about that a lot lately. That's a huge to be continued because then if you come anywhere near me, that sounded weird. That we can have an epic event, right? If someone is coming and they say, "Oh, I live in the Carolinas. I'm coming up, and I haven't been up for a few years up your way. It might be a while before I'm there again," and I'll say, "Well, definitely make an event out of it, right? We'll invite people. We can do it every time someone comes through. One of our buddies. It'd be so nice to have that kind of a home base, right? Not just a studio spot. I've been thinking about that a lot lately. Linda B. Cheers, my dears, on this chilly, rainy day in New Jersey. I guess it was so nice out earlier, but it did get weird tonight. It got like a evil Ray Bradbury, like something wicked this way comes, kind of a wind blew in. Mom, good to see you. Mayflowers too, and Granby rain is on the way. That's right, we're going to get a bad rainy weekend because it was the first weekend for Stormville Flea Market. I was all amped up for that, and then the forecast is like not a chance. So then I made these other plans on Saturday. I wonder if the Fiberfest will go forward, if it's an indoor event or an outdoor event, because it's 100% chance of rain. It's like living in a snow globe. Like, what's the chance of snow? It's 100%. It's like 100% chance of rain tomorrow. So I wonder what will happen with that. Hmm. Bonnie, happy Friday. Bonnie and Doug in Palm Coast, Florida. Get ready for your trivia. Massage the brain, right? Do some little stretches and get ready because I have some great trivia questions for tonight. It's a wacky night with a lot of different general interest trivia questions. So if you're thinking, oh, I'm not good at this and I'm not good at that, I'll probably call something that you are good at. And I hope that you enjoy it immensely. There's some funny twists and turns tonight. Um, oh, Diane, good to see you. Cheers from Bay Roberts. Uh, N. Is that NL? Netherlands? No, wait a minute. Um, NL. What's wrong with me? This must be Canada, right? It's not Newfoundland. No. NL. North. What's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? Tell me what NL is, Diane. There's something really wrong with me. Holy mackerel. It's got to be Canada, right? Bay Roberts. Oh, I wish I could. New Labrador? Is it New Labrador? Something like that? I'm trying to put words together that might make sense. Oh, I'm so ashamed of myself. I'm sorry. Becky, great to see you. And by the way, I've been working with Linda Ann on thinking about stops in Canada to make later this year to do book signings and to visit, to say hello, maybe to plan some events. So that's coming up later this year too. That's a definite for later this year without a doubt. Lisa, and we're coming your way. Linda Ann and I are coming your way in April for Sauter. We're going to come right through Pennsylvania, and I want to do some serious Magdalena stopping. And if the Magdalenas, the group, are hooking, we would love to get in on that. We would love a piece of that. So we will be coming through for like a week. It's going to be a long stint in August. I'm very excited. Diana Maloney, good morning in Brisbane, Australia. Good morning, sunshine. Have a good cup of coffee and get the day started right. Gayla, Good Friday. Good Friday, that's it. Good Friday, friends. Ryan, great to see you. Cheers, my dears in North Texas. Gin. You love your gin daisies. That's another one that I have to try. Maybe we should make a cocktail book before we make a recipe book, or maybe it could be a mix. And you're grilling and making jewelry. You're making your jewelry again on the back patio while the storm's rolling. Might as well seize the day before they hit you, right? Dave, good to see you. Everybody, hard seltzer, corned beef sandwich to celebrate cocktail night. That sounds amazing. That sounds amazing. April, great to see you. April, I was thinking about you while I was working on the pink elephant, right? Because of your story that you told me in the email. I was loving that story and going over it again in my mind. Allie, great to see you in Mississippi. Welcome. Priscilla, welcome. Cheers, my dears in Ohio. Great to see you. Jay, he'll be here in half an hour to turn that ring light on. Doreen, hello in New York. Great to see you. And Darlene, happy Friday night. Cheers, my dears. Sandra, greetings in Richmond Hill, Georgia. First time visiting. Georgia's another place I'm dying to get back to. It's been forever. I say that every time someone logs on from Georgia, right? That's another place I'm really keen to get back to sooner rather than later. Donna, have a drink for me. Oh, okay. I'll have one right now. I might as well do it now. Wet my whistle before I really start running my mouth, right? Mm, that's really not good. I don't know what it is. And I'm still going to finish it, but I don't like to waste. Karen, sunny and warming up finally because you just had snow on Wednesday, right? That was absolutely bonkers. Bye bye, snow. Yeah, Linda, good memory. And Robin said, yes, it was the fairy tale rug exhibit. And Carol posted some pictures in the group. I'm going to have to peel those off. And I think I just liked it right before the show started. I'm going to peel those off and use all of them. I'll check with Carol, but she usually lets me use her photos, right? She's such a sweetheart. Ryan, let's bring rug makers out of New England. Happy. We were talking about that, Ryan. I was talking about that with my buddy Rebecca, right? Storyteller Wool. She's like one of my best friends. Um, she's such a great puncher, right? And I'm going to show you the punch that I just finished. I finished this elephant so fast. I'm really proud of myself, I have to say. But Rebecca is amazing. She's way better than me. But she was saying, are you doing anything with the ATHA biennial, which will be in Texas? And I was like, I don't know. I've got solder 2 years in a row now. I it sounds like such an excuse, but my kids are so little. And Teddy's autistic, and um, yeah, I just worry about going too far away. It's just this thing. I'm also terrified of flying. Ex tour guide, right? I've always been terrified of flying. Terrified of flying. But I agree, Ryan. I agree. I've been thinking about it, and I said that to Rebecca. When we talked a couple days ago, I said, let me sleep on it because it's like I almost have to work up the nerve to kind of start chasing that in that part of the country because I've never been to Texas, but I would love to head out there. How far is like Colorado? Because I know a bunch of my buddies. Karen, you're there. Jean Coates is there. Rebecca is there. I have a bunch of buddies in Colorado. How far is that to drive to Texas? Is that like a possibility, or is that another plane ride? I, plane. I hate flying. Oh man, I hate flying. We'll see what happens. Yeah, I'm definitely thinking that too, Ryan. I know. I feel like there's nothing in New England, really. I feel like, Ohio is where everything happens. In Florida, things happen. I feel like nothing happens in New England. And I will be having a retreat in New England next year. And I'll tell you more about that with Deborah and a bunch of my buddies around here, Michelle Micarelli. That'll be in Mystic, Connecticut, so that we can combine the excellence of Mystic, Connecticut and that beautiful historic village, Mystic Pizza, all of that, with having a really fun event there. And that is very close. Also, it's in Connecticut, but it's like one town away from Rhode Island where you have Newport right there, right? And there's nothing better than Newport. And Providence, the water fire in the summer. We'll talk about that when it gets closer, but I know you'll want to plan for that. And I'm putting that into place with the Hilton, like these days, going back and forth with that these days. Food brings people together. It sure does, Dave. And I hate to say, I just went to Wendy's. I mean, I just lost my mind, and I accidentally got a double because I took the wrong burger when Teddy got out of the car. And it wasn't, they made an accident. It wasn't a double, it was a quadruple. There were 4 patties on it, and I ate it. And I hate myself now. I wasn't even hungry, and what is wrong with me? Yes, food brings people together, and it also brings your pants apart because they're unbuttoned right now. So Weird how these opposite things can happen. Sharon, sunny Vancouver day in Canada. Oh, that sounds great. Good to see you. The Wisconsin Sheep and Wool Festival, first week of September. Okay, good. I'm gonna put that on the calendar just so I don't forget that. First week of September. Corning. Yeah, Judy, I think the brand is Corning, right? Those dishes, those flat dishes. I don't know, is that a general word? I think that's the brand. Now that you said that, I'm picturing what Corning looks like. That's a very good word that triggers that for sure. Joy, hello in Port Charlotte, Florida. Great to see you. Warming tray. See, I bet we use different words in different places for that. It's not a chafing dish, though, is it? Because that's like a metal dish that goes onto a flame, not like something that turns on with an electrical cord with like two um, prongs on it, right? It's not one of those. Wendy, great to see you. Cold and raining in northern Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Boo! Andrea, yes, get a shop. I will happily move and work with you. That sounds great. What will John say, though, Andrea? What will he say? You'll at least have to come for an extended visit, right? Oh, I love your glass. Oh, I got it from TJ Maxx in the fall, right? That's like my decoy when I'm like at a child's party and I want to pretend like I'm having a coffee. They don't know me as well as you know me. Ryan says, would love that. A salon, modern salon for rug makers. It would be so fun. I just, I want something where we can do other stuff besides hooking is obviously great. That's the point. But to just be able to get together and to share other parts of our lives besides crafting. Because where there's a kitchen, there's bodies standing around chatting and connecting and relating. And I love that more than anything, even more than rug making. So yeah, my head is into that. The salt and heating trays, Mom. I've never even heard that word. Wonderful for all evening potlucks, just like our Christmas buffets back in the day, our neighborhood parties and Dad's office party, food orgies. They absolutely were crazy. Crazy food times in the 70s. Oh man. Newfoundland, yes, and Labrador. Got it. Oh, so I knew those words. I just never saw NL together. And I thought, oh my gosh, yes. Dawn, great to see you in rainy Michigan. We're all getting slammed with rain. Cat's Gallery, you are not. Sunny and warm in Southern California. Never rains, does it? My daughter lives in Richmond Hill, Georgia. God, Georgia has a lot of hooking, right? Right? The house on the hill, that whole thing still haunts me. It's calling out to me. Texas welcomes you. Greatest state for expansion and personality. I believe it, Ryan. I believe it. I'm really thinking about it. It's far. Which part of Texas? Karen, what part of Texas is the biennial coming up in? Does anybody remember what city that is? I want to say Houston, um, but that it was a while ago that they announced it. Now I'm not that sure. My doctor gives me Ativan. Oh, really? Your doctor prescribes something to fly with nerves. Interesting. I've never had anything, and I am a nervous. What's that? That kind of thing. Like I think the wing is like coming off, or I think I'm gonna look out the window and that thing from Twilight Zone is like out on the wing. It's really bad. Deborah, good to see you. Oh, it is far, a few days at least. Oh, dang. All right. That doesn't mean it's a no. It just means I can't combine those two things if it's that far. Dallas to Denver is a 12-hour drive. All right. Thank you. It's good information. I was hoping it would be like a 2 hours. I don't have the geography in my head at all. Texas is hot. It's a great place to visit. Donna says you could stay with me, but I'll be in Alaska. Will you be in Alaska during the biennial? Oh, that's a bummer. I would have loved to stay with you. That sounds fun. Like to have a nice cozy place and a friend to stay with. That's the best. And April says, LOL, great decoy on the cup. Thank you. Fort Worth, Texas could use the influx of new art. Well, Ryan, you are such a great sort of proponent of the state. You are a great spokesperson for the state. And I'm going to talk to Rebecca again tomorrow. We'll go another round on that. We go in the ring a little bit. We talk about stuff that is a bit hard. And I'm like an animal who, I just like bridle and no, but then it takes me time to think about stuff. I don't make quick decisions, and especially with things that are related to phobias. So let me show you this, and then let's get going. I went crazy with this elephant. See if I can hold him high enough. I'm not that tall. I'm like 5'2" over here. I just took him off the frame, so he's still all buckly, and he's definitely packed. It's me, and I pack like crazy, but I really love him, and I'm gonna iron him out. He's 100% wool. This was 3-ply wool. He's lots of different colors. If you can see, the background is not solid at all. And I did the outlining. If you saw in the earlier photos, it is a little bit. I was thinking about this. Because in the Facebook group we were saying, one of my buddies said, what about doing like a design like Lily Pulitzer, right? Who's one of my favorites, right? In the summer, obviously in the summer, because this is a very Lily Pulitzer palette, right, with the real neons. And for those of you who aren't, because I think Lily Pulitzer might be an American thing, I was saying to Jane in Wales, Lily Pulitzer is like a neon Laura Ashley. Would you go along with that description? She's like a neon Laura Ashley. But this symbol reminds me more of a different brand that's been popular here. I'm not a brand person at all. It's just I got a shirt at Goodwill that said Ella and it had an elephant on it. And I thought, interesting. And that's one of the things, besides seeing we were at Goodwill this weekend and I saw the elephant and I thought, oh, interesting. It wasn't the Ella elephant, but my mom and I got talking about it. And then the elephant in the room happened. That's what this pattern is called. So it's a little bit Lily Pulitzer. It's a little bit Ella. A little bit Vineyard Vines is like another one of these preppy brands lately that's really colorful. So the palette is Lily Pulitzer. The motif really isn't, because Lily Pulitzer doesn't really do any kind of light colors. It's all crazy neons. But I was thinking, for me, this palette is a super 80s palette. Because do you remember the 80s with the pinks and the greens and all the neons and the Izod, right? Like that was just life. That was life. And then it was the Benetton and the Esprit and all that stuff. But this reminds me of that more than anything else that I just mentioned. So it's a real fusion. But this will be coming out as a kit. I think it's out as a kit now. I think I forgot to post it in the description of this video, but it is on ribbon candy hooking. That was the last thing before I left the house that we were working on. But I really love this. And I worked on this for 3 days, none of them full days. So I punched this really, really fast. And I still have all my field of tails over here. Look, right? It's going to be a lot of work to pull them. I'm going to pull them all through with my hook. But I really love it. And I'm probably going to turn it into a pillow. And I might make a few of them and turn them into a pillow. I'm very happy with it. And I'm not, I usually don't like punching as much because I'm a real control freak. And I like to know what's going on the correct side. So I'm constantly flipping. But it's still, with it being stretched over my frame, I know that I pack when I hook and punch. And with it being really stretched over my frame, and I'm really, it's like the whole like picking scabs, not to be disgusting, but I have this kind of personality, like there's a little hole that can't be there. I have to fill the little hole in. And then it's like, don't fill the hole in. And then I fill the hole in, right? It's just the way that I am. So I find punching a little bit harder because of my nature, that it's like, there's a little hole, got to get it. And it's hard, and I know I shouldn't, and it's hard to override myself, right? So for me, I find punching a little bit harder for that reason, and I pack more than I do when I'm hooking. I do that when I'm hooking too, and I know better, and I know that I'm doing it. But knowing that you're doing something bad and being able to stop aren't always the same thing, are they? Oh, thanks, Wendy. Thanks. Oh, good morning, Gail. Good morning in Australia. Great to see you. Happy Saturday morning. Happy weekend. Punchers Unite. That's it. Would love to know the punchers in this group. If you are also a puncher, Ryan is a puncher, right? Both. I think you're the only Ryan on tonight. I think Ryan Richards is not on, or maybe he's on later. But you are both big punchers, and there's a bunch of big punchers in our group. So shout out for yourself if you're a puncher. Can have a sub conversation, punchers only talk, right? So I'm working on Paul Klee too. I've been working on that for the better part of the day, and I am loving putting this together. This month, Design Like Paul Klee. It's going to be absolutely so fabulous because he had so many phases, so many phases, so many fish suspended in the air, so many eyes and faces, so many towering flower pots and gardens, the puppets. Like there's so many eras of his life that were so colorful, so many reinvented, like child-inspired compositions. He was so inspired by children's art. There's so many things to say about him. There's so many things to look at that translate so well to rug making. So I hope that you're signed up for Design Like Paul Klee, because that is coming up Wednesday and again on Sunday. They are independent recorded classes. If you can't make it in person, you get all the same stuff. But if you're there logging on Wednesday or Sunday, I'll be there live with you, and I will run the same program twice with a different audience and a different group of friends. So let's get going on trivia nights, shall we? Oh, let's see. Okay, so hang on. Let me come over here to our first. And the first one is going to be the elephant in the room that I was just showing you because, oops, I almost deleted it. Classic Deanna. Elephant in the room. So this is really bleached out, right? I took this out on the back step, not in a studio situation. So it doesn't look super good. It looks super grainy. And then I sent it to myself like 5 times because the file was too big. You know that one? So elephant in the room. Let's use this. You're punching a piece right now. Oh, how fun. Puncher only. Okay, we're getting some good responses there. Um, Trivia night is about looking at a rug and then coming up with a conversation, coming up with some questions for you about some aspect of the rug, right? So we're looking at an elephant in the room. Where's she going to go with this one, huh? So, elephant in the room, where does this term come from? I'm going to come back to you. Do you know where the term comes from? This is going to be the question. I thought this was really interesting. Do not Google. Do not, I will feel it. I will feel a disturbance in the force if you Google. This is just for fun. You can shout out a stupid answer. We will love you even more if you do. Um, where does the term elephant in the room come from? It is an English language. Obviously, it only works in English. It doesn't translate to other languages. You say it in a different language in a different country, and they probably would understand what you mean because it's so clear. But it really is an English metaphor slash idiom, right? We only use it in English. Um, and what it means is that there is an obvious problem of some sort that nobody wants to talk about, right? Nobody wants to say it out loud. And it's a funny situation. And I know we've all been in situations with an elephant in the room. Where does the phrase come from? Is it a poem? Is it a comic strip? Or is it a fable? So I'll give you just a minute while I take a small sip and see what you come up with. Is it a poem, a comic strip, or a fable? Wendy, you just did your first Ultra Punch this week. Ooh, nice. I don't think I've seen it yet in the group. I did see an Ultra Punch pop up. Whose punch was that? Oh, it was just on the tip of my tongue. It was a cute vase. It looked like it had 3 little flowers in it and very irregular flowers coming out. It really spoke to me. It was kind of like, can I buy that? But it was somebody's first punch, so I don't like to be that much of a predator. But it was great. Wendy, I can't wait to see yours. I know it wasn't yours, or I would have realized. Really fun. Oh, Deborah, you did great with that Vogue class too. You're going to do great with this class too. It's very designy. Some of the design light classes, are more impressionist, and those are very hard to translate to hooking. And I'm very clear about that. That's very hard to translate because one thing is the design, but the other aspect of it is the materials that you're using. How will you get that kind of play of light and that variety of specks and color, right? Unmixed. How will you get that, right? So those are a little bit technically tougher. This one is really straightforward, like the Vogue class. I can't wait. So Melissa says comic. Deborah also says comic. Sharon says comic. Spam risk. No, thank you. It is not a comic. It's actually a fable. So in 1814, Ivan Andreevich Krylov, Krylov, his life was between 1769 and 1844. He was a poet and a fabulist. I didn't know that fabulist was a word. Now we know. He wrote a fable entitled The Inquisitive Man. And in this story, it tells about a man who goes to a museum and he notices all kinds of things, all kinds of little things, right? Lots of little things, like a little cabinet of curiosities of a museum. He notices all these little things, but he fails to notice a giant elephant in the room. And the phrase became like proverbial in the culture. And even Dostoevsky in his novel Demons wrote, quote, Belinsky was just like Krylov's inquisitive man who didn't notice the elephant in the museum. So this does work, I guess, in other languages. It's just apparently not used as an idiom in other places. If I'm wrong, let me know. I'm using Wikipedia and a couple of online sites that I rabbit holed. But I thought that was interesting. I didn't know that, and I wondered what the genesis of it was. It's one of these obvious sayings, and I thought maybe it's just that one person said it, and but no, actually, it was something that was written down, and it was part of a fable. So now I really want to read The Inquisitive Man, and it is kind of a mocking title because if he's so inquisitive, how did he not notice like the obvious, right? That's the whole point, isn't it? There's some really rich irony there. I got dragged to lots of white elephant sales with my mother and Aunt Ryan. Oh, Dave says in Canada, oftentimes church and school bazaars would be called a white elephant sale, referring to rummage sales years ago in the 70s. Here too, sometimes you get, well, it's kind of mutated here. So the biggest flea market in this part of the country is called the Elephant's Trunk, and it's in Connecticut. It's fantastic. It's every weekend. Yeah, I think Saturday. No, I think it's just Sunday. I think it's just Sunday. But that's called the Elephant's Trunk. And we have another phrase, at least in New England, and it might be in other places too. When we say white elephant, it sometimes means like a giant house, like a mansion that nobody wants anymore, nobody can afford to keep. Like it's a massive monster of a thing that nobody wants. So for us, at least here, the most common usage of white elephant is usually about like some beautiful old mansion that they've either turned into apartments or somebody's about to turn it into, God forbid, a parking lot because it's a white elephant, you know. It's funny to talk about how these things shift from place to place, isn't it? Wendy says, thought of you today while I was at a used bookstore. I saw Russian fairy tales, very thick book. Ooh, that would be interesting because I do have some books on Russian fairy tales, but none of them are big. So that's one that I haven't seen. I'm always looking for more fairy tales. And I was thinking with this fairy tale thing, it's because there's a design like Fairy Tale Part 2 coming up with Magic Kettle, Colony of Cats, Bremen Minstrels, Three Bears, and one other, The Nightingale. So kind of cross culture selection that I made. And I'm thinking I probably will at least every other month run a fairy tale class or a fable class along with the regular design like because it's inspires so much conversation and designing, right? And it's just it's great storytelling opportunity, it's great brainstorming opportunity. And I'm thinking in different parts of the year we could focus on different fairy tales because I almost picked Hans Christian Andersen's The Fir Tree as one of the ones for this time. And I thought, nope, I'm going to save that until it's like the holidays again, or at least the winter again, so that it makes more sense to talk about stories that are set at different times of the year, right? Doesn't that make much better sense? White elephant gifts too. Ooh, nice. See, I like this. We're all learning. April says we do white elephant gift exchanges at Christmas parties. And sometimes when you bring a gift that you already have from home and you play games with, how cool is that? You setting up the light? Okay. Here comes the ring light. Da 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 da. That was all great information and great job if you got that question right. And if you didn't, great guess. Doesn't matter. It's just fun to play, isn't it? So let's move on to question number 2. Oh, okay. So hang on. Oh, so I wanted to show this comic. I meant to show this earlier. This is a comic with no words. It doesn't need any words, does it? This couple is obviously having an issue that they probably should be talking about, but they're not going to, are they? So just a funny expression. I think one of the best, most descriptive. Now, completely different conversation here. This conversation is going to be about laundry. Now, yes, I know it doesn't sound very appealing on a Friday night. This image comes from a rarity, Ararity auctions on Live Auctioneers. It's described as Grenfell style. I'm going to say it is not Grenfell style in any way other than it has a black border. And it's there's a lot of directional hooking in it, right? It's very horizontal in its hooking. Otherwise, it's not like Grenfell style at all. So I'm going to come to the question in a minute. I just wanted to look at some stuff with you. I think I had more. I want to show you a few more because this is currently on and you are able to bid on it. So this is not done with silk stockings, Grenfell style. This is obviously done with wool. I would think this is probably 1960s, 1970s, could even be 1980s. I think it's right in there. It's very hard to tell. It probably was hanging on a wall. It looks like a number 8. It's got a lot of beautiful directional hooking. It really is a charming piece. And black border, right? And I think what made it look Grenfell style to the person who wrote the listing was that it is so horizontal, right? It's beautifully hooked. I have a picture of the back of it too. You see that strong horizontal feel to it. Dolphins in the water. It has a bit of a Maud Lewis feel, doesn't it? Right, the small kind of cottages right on the edge of the shore, little jetty, right? Could be New England, could be Canada. Hard to tell with the dolphins. It could definitely be New England. Are there dolphins in Canada, or is it too cold in the water up there? I know they're here. We used to sometimes see them on the boat going out to Martha's Vineyard in Nantucket. But beautiful, beautiful piece. Now my question for you with this piece, I'm going to come back to the original piece just for one more look. I just want to say this composition is so cute, right? Little cottage, little shanty on the dock, little boat coming in, very folky, real disregard for perspective. Why not, right? You do whatever you want. Andrew says, Scylla Cameron will be teaching using stockings in September UK wreath rug retreat. That is fantastic information. Um, that is where Heather, she just passed away, didn't she? Heather, oh God, and I'm going to be awful now and black out on the full name. She was one of the big founders of that, wasn't she? The wreath retreat. Mm. I'm just having a quick sip. Mm. Sorry about that. I got real thirsty. That was water. That was water. Deborah says, I have Cinderella and Wizard of Oz books with illustrations by artists in the fairy tale book. Oh, how cool is that? A fun surprise. That is super cool. You can go down that rabbit hole so easily on eBay, and you can also cross-check Amazon for used books and Abe books, right? ABE, Abe books. That ring light is on. You can tell it because it's reflecting the ring in my glasses. But that's right. At least it's a little bit brighter, I think. It is fun to find those illustrations because they are copyright free, right? Of that age, they are copyright free. So interesting. Richie, thank you so much, Andrea. That she was heavily involved in that event, wasn't she? That's like synonymous with her in my mind. Oh, super sad. I have to really do another show on her as well. Perfect. Thank you. So let's come over here, and I want to ask you a question about laundry. And I'm not going to ask you if you've done yours anytime recently. I love the laundry line in this, by the way. Look at the cute clothing and look at the little skirt, a little upside down skirt that's done in the tweedy material. It looks like the only thing in this piece that is done in the tweedy material. Also notice how the white boat is outlined in turquoise blue as opposed to the cobalt blue of the water. Interesting piece, isn't it? And the white shack is outlined in the red color and the red shack is outlined in the black color. Just interesting choices. Very, very, very graphic. Weird question. Here it comes. What was the world's first laundry detergent? Now I'm going to give you a clue and say it was a powder, right? Of course it was a powder. It wasn't like a liquid then with a plastic container. What was the world's first laundry detergent? I'm going to give you three choices. Was it Persil? Was it Dreft? Or was it Tide? What do you think? Now I'm going to take a sip of the wine. I swear when I was chugging earlier, it was the water. I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't be able to finish. Oh, Ryan, there you are. I was just talking about you because we were talking about great punchers. How's your piece coming? How's the tapestry coming along? What an epic piece that is. My God. Borax, not borax. So you chose that before I gave the multiple choice, and you're smart. That was a great. If I had thought of that as a tricky one, I would have put that in. Everyone's saying borax and Tide. Those aren't the answers, according to the internet. Persil, Allie, that's what I got. Persil was introduced by a German company called Henkel in 1907. It was the world's first laundry powder, and its name derived from uh, perborate and silicate, two of the main components. So Persil, 1907. So Dreft was put out by Procter and Gamble. That was 1933. I mean, these are all early. And Tide was 1946. I don't know about borax. Interesting. But 1907, that's what it said anyway. Persil was the first one, and that is quite early. 20 Mule Team something. 20 Mule Team something. No, I thought you were going to ask about the phrase Blue Monday. No. Oh, how funny. Oh, you could ask a side trivia question in the thread, and I could play too. If you ever want to ask a side question, I would love to. I would love to give a stupid answer right here live. Right? I would love to. How funny. Yep. So Persil, that was that one, and good job if you got it. If not, good guess. Who cares, right? And let's move on to our next question. Let's see. I think that is borax. Wendy, I think that's borax. Draft for baby clothes. Oh, we looked at these. So let's go to our next image, and here it is. So here comes a teddy bear rug, right? It does have damage in the center, very cute, but it does have damage in the center. This is available right now from John McGinnis Auctioneers, right? So this is another online auction. If you are in love with this rug and you want to rescue it and fix it, it is live now, right? It'll be live for a few more days at John McGinnis Auctioneers, and that is also on Live Auctioneers. Now, I'm going to ask you a song about the famous poem, the famous song, Teddy Bear's Picnic. Now, I don't quite have the theme, I'm ashamed to say, but it goes something like this, doesn't it? If you go down to the woods today, you're sure of a big surprise. If you go down to the woods today, you'd better go in disguise. And then I don't know how this part goes. I'm going to read you the rest of it because it is such a cute poem. For every bear, for I don't know the tune. For every bear that ever was will gather there for certain because today's the day the teddy bears have their picnic. I remember that part. Every teddy bear, I'm going to just say it because it's too hard to remember it. Every teddy bear who's been good is sure of a treat today. There's lots of marvelous things to eat and wonderful games to play. Beneath the trees where nobody sees, they'll hide and they'll seek as long as they please. That's the way the teddy bears have their picnic. Something like that. And then I'm going to just read the end because it's so cute. I can't stop. Picnic time for teddy bears. The little teddy bears are having a lovely time today. Watch them, catch them unawares, and see them picnic on their holiday. See them gaily gad about. They love to play and shout. They never have any cares. At 6 o'clock, their mummies and daddies will take them back home to bed because they're tired little teddy bears. It's awful when you just say it, isn't it? Which of the adorable? It's adorable, isn't it? I have to listen to this. It was on one of the kids' music CDs when they were little, and they hated it. Both of them hated it. Well, if Teddy hated it, obviously Jocelyn was going to hate it too. They hated it. So I always forwarded past it and went for that, the Ants Go Marching instead, which in my mind is the same song. But I know it's not, but it seems like the same song. Which of these musicians did not record the Teddy Bear's Picnic? Burl Ives, don't Google it, Disturbance in the Force, Burl Ives, Anne Murray, or Bing Crosby. Which musician did not record Teddy Bear's Picnic? Burl Ives, Anne Murray, or Bing Crosby? And I think there's a trivia question here. Deborah says, where did German chocolate cake get its name? Oh, your kids hated it too, Judy. Couldn't keep it on. There were some songs that were so cute that I loved to play, and they were just not having it. It was just not worth it. You know, the fuss they kicked up. Forward the song. It was just not. I didn't love the song enough, right, to fight for it. Where did German chocolate cake get its name? I'm going to say, and I don't know, I'm going to say that the person's name was German, because I bet there's a trick to it. I bet it's not Germany. I'm wondering if it's like Canada geese, and I wonder if it's like someone, Mr. or Mrs. German, came up with a recipe. Could that be it? That's my guess. Oh, okay. So Judy says the person who did not record it, Anne Murray, Bing Crosby. Juju, you got it right. It's Burl Ives. Now, wouldn't you think he would? Because wasn't that sneaky that I put that in there like that? I was very proud of myself because he recorded so many children's songs. No, Anne Murray recorded it and Bing Crosby recorded it. So the right answer was Burl Ives. Isn't that funny? Gotcha. Seriously, Deborah, I got it right. Oh, mwah, mwah. I'm doing good tonight. I'm doing good. I'm gonna celebrate by drinking out of the sneaky cup again. Just can't imagine Bing recording that. You know, Sharon, listen to it because I listened to it. I had a minute to listen to a blip of it on YouTube. I mean, because he did a lot of beautiful children's songs too. But I agree. If it was me, I would have guessed Bing. I would have guessed Anne, I think, because that doesn't sound like her kind of thing either. But my last choice, I would have felt for sure that Burl Ives had, but he definitely didn't. Thank you, Dave. I feel sneaky. How funny. All right, so we'll go to our next one. I'm sorry, I'm going to keep my mouth shut in case other people want to make guesses, and there are other trivia questions out there. So Teddy Bear won, gotcha. Zing. All right, let's see. We'll go on to our next one. I got a bunch for you. We got to speed this up. So this is a bit of a rabbit hole. I went down the rabbit hole big time with this. Ryan, I was looking at your speed tufters thing because I had another question in mind. I was looking at these on eBay. And I stumbled upon this horrible. This is not my taste at all, but it sort of piqued my curiosity because I know that this is Emmett Kelly, like the famous hobo clown, right? And I thought it was interesting that this pattern is not called by his name, but it's called Hobo Clown, which is the character who he played, and it sent me right down Oh, did she, Dave? She recorded a whole children's album. Um, I think her song is Snowbird, right? There's one song, I want to say it's called Snowbird, that I really like. And other than that, I'm not a huge fan. And I do love that genre of music. Barry is like my all timey. Yeah, I never could get into any of her. Hit me with a good Anne Murray song. And I love to be wrong. I do love to be wrong. No clown alert. I'm sorry, Andrea. You might have to put on some dark glasses for this, or even a blindfold, because we're going down a hobo clown sinkhole right now. So the thing that got me was that he wasn't named in that, right? And everybody knows that Emmett Kelly is the hobo clown, but I just thought copyright was so different, like back in the day, right? Before 1978, it was very, very different. So I pulled up, and if you don't know Emmett Kelly, maybe you're not from the U.S., or maybe this just has eluded you somehow, because he's a very famous clown, right? And this sounds silly, and I know clowns are not for everyone, but I thought this led to a very interesting conversation with myself on the couch. So Emmett Kelly was an American circus performer, artist, really an artist, who created the clown character called Weary Willie. And that was the actual name of the hobo clown, that Weary Willie. And this clown character that he evolved was based on um, the hobos. Hobos is a rough word, right? Of the Great Depression, right? Because there is a distinction. I'm going to make a language distinction in a minute. But during the Great Depression, let's do this in order. Let me ask you this first. I'm going to ask the trivia question first, and then let's go down what will be, I promise, a really interesting rabbit hole that's not just clowny. It's quite clowny. But what state was Emmett Kelly from? Now, if you're from this state, you're going to know, right? Missouri, Kansas, or Ohio? What do you think? Um, I did know, and I don't know why I knew, right? It's just one of those things, isn't it? Because I don't know a lot about him. While you're answering, I'm going to read a little bit about him because I think this is really interesting. I was pulling this off of a great website I go to a lot called the Vintage News, right? It's a website, the Vintage News. Emmett Kelly was a circus performer and one of the greatest American circus clowns of the 20th century. I would say the greatest. He created the character Weary Willie, who was a sad hobo clown dressed in tattered clothes. Right. I'm going to show you some more pictures. He I can't tell you where he was born yet. I'm going to wait for some answers to come in. Let me show you some more pictures of him while I wait. I don't want to spoil it. We're going to move away from this. Now, Andrea, be on high alert, amber alert right now at least. Um, so this is what the pattern looks like. This is also disturbing. Juju, you are on fire tonight. It is Kansas. It is Kansas. Well done. Oh, she did do Danny's song. And she did Just Another Woman in Love. I love Snowbird. I don't know if I know Just Another Woman in Love. I love Danny's song, but that's Loggins and Messina, right? She must have covered that one. Did she do original songs? Like Snowbird was such a lilting, happy song. Remember? I can't remember how it goes, or I would try it. But I remember I loved that song. And her other ones, she's a very low alto, isn't she? Nothing wrong with that. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. It just, her voice doesn't really do it for me the way like Joni Mitchell's does, that kind of thing. So this is what the pattern looks like. And this is what, I'm sorry, Gail. I'm sorry. This is going to be interesting, I promise. So these are some promotional pictures. And I have to say, these make me more than sad. Looking at this Weary Willie character, I have to say, in my mind, right, I'm not a big fan of clowns either, especially since Stephen King. But I will say, um, I will say, I don't consider him a clown or a circus performer. I mean, I consider this like performance art because what he has in mind is is a character type, a person who existed. Probably he knew one or many from the generation before who lived this hard, sad, post depression, miserable, transient life. And he wanted to remind people of that character, right? Of that character who was a big part of the population. A lot of men, young men, old men, fell into bad times and started to take trains, hop trains, follow railroad tracks, looking for places to get food, looking for places to work. This is a moment in time. And I find this astonishing that it is a lot, I know. The price is a lot. I find it astonishing that as a circus clown, he went against the grain to not make people laugh, right? But to make people think and remember. Like, this is heavy. This is really, really heavy. Um, this isn't. This is weird. But I just love this photo with like the curved tub, and look at that towel. I mean, talk about mid-century modern in the background, right? I just, yeah. And it's like this weirdness in this photo. Again, like, it's very artistic, isn't it? Like, he's super dirty and he's miserable, and he's in this nice clean bath getting a chance to clean up, and he's still super sad. Um, I just find this story incredible. I didn't live at this time. I'm 51, but reading about the Depression, let's read a little bit more and see if you dig in with me, because this really got me. So he was born in Sedan, Kansas in 1898 on December 9th. He was the son of an Irish railroad worker. When he was young, he went to school for cartooning, and he later began entertaining as an actor in schools. And when he was a teenager, he moved to Kansas City and he tried to find work as an artist. He got several rejections from different companies, and then he was asked to join the carnival. This is something that happened, right? So he was working as a trapeze artist in 1923. So he really is of this time. I thought he was a little bit later. He really is of this time. He met his wife in 1923, who was in the same act on the trapeze. And later they performed together, and they called themselves the Aerial Kellys, right? So during that time, he also occasionally performed as a whiteface clown and wished to clown full time, but in this hobo persona, right? As like a hat tip to people who did not have a plan during the Depression and who really struggled. So he made some sketches, pulling on his art background, and he tried to show what he meant to do with this character of Wary Willie, who was a sad clown. And this was like not done, right? You're supposed to make people laugh. So, and he was often seen at the end of the show, like sweeping up afterward, just very solitary and alone, working, getting whatever work he could. So it was very meaningful, and it was very heavy. Like the usual clowns at that time, who made the audience laugh, Willie was able to make people happy, but he also appealed to their sensitive side. One of his most famous performances when he was trying to crack a peanut with a sledgehammer. His role was revolutionary because it was based upon the tramps of the Depression era. Emmett performed with the Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus between 1942 and 1956. So he was doing the hobo thing after the Depression. Of course, it wasn't before, of course. He became very famous because of his act, and later had some film roles, including the movie The Greatest Show on Earth, 1952, directed by Cecil B. DeMille, where he appears as Wary Willie. So he really goes all the way with this character. 2 years before he retired from his regular circus work, he wrote an autobiography called Clown. That's not for everybody, but I'm going to read it. Emmett died on March 28, 1979, of a heart attack. He was 80 years old, and he's buried at Lafayette's Rest Haven Memorial Park in Indiana. And then I got this. So he sounds so interesting, right? He went on to run booze from Canada into the U.S. Is that right? Did he do that, Sharon? Oh, he's like a booze runner during Prohibition years. How funny is that? That's probably in the biography. So let me show you, because I went down the rabbit hole a little bit, and I just thought these photos were an interesting sort of window into this time. Wow, I have a lot of things. So I found photos like this online easily, and I found this is a real photo from Library of Congress. I found this on a site called dustyoldthing.com. If you are interested in this, you are going to love this blog, dustyoldthing.com. It's called Secret Signs of the 1930s, most regular people did not know about. And this is by Rose Heichelbeck. And I won't read the whole thing, but it's about tramp symbols, right? So she says there's a lot of symbols that were used during the Great Depression. Check this out. During the Great Depression, because there were so many tramps and beggars looking for a day's work, a hot meal, or a place to sleep. These hoboglyphs, that has a word, hoboglyphs, were you? Oh, your grandfather. Good for him, Sharon. He sounds like a character. Good for him. These hoboglyphs were usually known to other hobos, signs that made most regular folk would have no clue what they were about or how to decode them. So hobos left these for each other. April. Most people felt the pinch of the Great Depression in ways big and small. However, most people did not lead itinerant lives on foot, and they didn't know what these symbols were about. So there are these are in the slideshow here, and these are also on the site called Dusty Old Thing. These are symbols that you would find that. So a tramp is someone who is walking around looking for lodging, looking to work, right? Looking for an exchange. Like, I will work for food, I will work for lodging. These are different chalk signs that you would find along different trails and railroad lines. And they're different from country to country because the first one I showed you is mostly England. And then it said, wait a minute, let me make sure. See, this is a tramp. Sorry, this is a young man, right, who has fallen on hard times, who was looking for a house where he could get something to eat, right, or drink. And this lady gives him something. So you see in these symbols here, it says, this one is better, I think, for that. Wait a minute. Sample of hobo signs like leave quickly, you can stay here, a gentleman lives here, like a wealthy person, rich people live here, a kind lady lives here. There's a kind lady, so tell her a sad story, right? This is really specific, and it sounds awful, but this is a hard time, isn't it? Talk about religious stuff and you'll get a free mail. I mean, it sounds a bit, it is what it is, right? If you're starving to death and you know what to do, you're going to do it, aren't you? But I just thought it was interesting. And then this article talks about the origin of tramp symbols in relation to the Boy Scouts, because it said around the same time the Boy Scouts in the U.S. were learning of such signs that the hoboglyphs existed, because it started in England. I guess hoboglyphs started in England. At least this site said that. So the Boy Scouts figured out what the symbols were as a way to communicate with each other within the Boy Scouts, keep away from danger or send help. A Scout's Guide from the era also makes mentions of hobos and tramps using the same signs, showing that the signs were well established in the United States at that point. And then it goes on to give history and talk about following the Civil War, there's a lot of men who traveled in order to make ends meet. And then following the railroad jobs after the crash of 1873, a lot of men didn't obviously lost their jobs and had to jump trains. And certainly being a hobo was linked to trains and the train life. Hobos self-identified as those who are homeless but willing to work, whereas tramps were those who traveled but were unwilling to work. They were looking for more of a handout thing. And the bums were those who, this is awful, but this is a distinction, who neither traveled nor worked. So this is we don't hopefully use exactly the same language anymore. We have a bit more sensitivity these days. But I think this whole conversation was interesting, and I just couldn't stop reading about it because it talks about after the stock market crash. I mean, who ever thought they would be following a railroad line looking for a symbol written in chalk so they could have a cup of coffee, like in that photo? I mean, it's just so awful, isn't it? Let me see if I have any more photos from this series. But I started to look, and I really had trouble stopping. It was so interesting. Let me see what this next one is. Yeah, so that was the last one that I put in, but I thought, man, whew, we are so lucky for so many things, right? But all of these ciphers, I did not know that there was a whole code that was devoted to tramping and the sort of hobo life of the 1920s, 1930s. Emmett was at the Hartford. No way. Was he at the Hartford Circus Fire in 44? A picture of him that day was published in. Oh, you're kidding. I didn't know that. Gosh, Allie, that's so interesting. Because I went to an exhibit not that long, well, it was a couple of years ago at the Connecticut Historical Society, and it was about, I can't believe I can't now think of the name of the big department store. There were several big department stores in Hartford, but the one that was run by a woman, and a Jewish woman at that. And what a great, and her father had set the place up. Help me out here. What was the name of that store? An amazing story about philanthropy, and after the fire in Hartford, right, the circus and everything else. The fire, I think, hit the department store too, and they lost tons of stuff, and nobody could come to work for weeks, and they lost all their bills and stuff. At what department store was it? They lost all of the accounting stuff, and they just put it in the newspaper on honor system. If you owe us money, like please pay it because things are not good for us. And by the time they got themselves back together and they got their records back together, it was like something like 4 years, and they figured out that like over 95%, like a crazy number of bills that were owed had been paid, like on the honor system, because the city was rocking from that tragedy, absolutely rocking. I think it was the same fire. Um, I think it was the same fire. That's interesting, fascinating. Ooh, I wish I had a picture of that. I didn't know that. I like to do little tie-ins like that. Help me out with the name of that store. That's going to drive me crazy. So let's move on to the next drug. But man, I went down that hobo rabbit hole like you wouldn't believe. I didn't know about this. I've seen cartoons, right? Remember like Warner Brothers and stuff, like when Tom or Jerry would get in a fight or whatever, they would put like a stick with a handkerchief on their back, and I just thought, oh, that's like a weird thing from that time. It is a thing. I didn't really get that this was people's lives, that it's not just like a frame in a cartoon, right? It's just absolutely crazy. Whew, we are so lucky to live where we do and when we do now. So, next rug, and I think this is really interesting too. This required some research. This is currently for sale on eBay. This is called Antique Hand Hooked Pictorial Folk Art Rag Rug, beautiful colors, car and house. And it's being sold by Kingsbury, Bury Farm. It is $99 plus $15 for shipping. I shouldn't be showing this because I'd really like to get this rug. This is a really pretty rug. And this will end tonight, right around the time, about an hour from now, that this show ends. So just be aware that it's there. Antique hooked, hand hooked pictorial folk art rag rug, beautiful colors, car and house. Now, I was looking at this and I was thinking, look at that little car. What is that little car? What's going on in here? I'm looking for clues, right? I do this. And I'm thinking, this looks kind of like I don't know, like the Gropius house. This is like a very, not a Frank Lloyd Wright house, but it's a very artsy mid-century kind of a ranch house, isn't it? It's a modern house for its time. So what does that mean? Like what does that place this rug? I'm thinking it's kind of hard to date it. It looks like it might have been used as a rug. It looked like there's a lot of fading in there. It's still in great condition, but the car is maybe a better clue. And I'm going, is that a Volkswagen Bug? It's not a Volkswagen Bug. It's too stretched out, right? Do you want to guess what car this is? Because we have a delay here. But I'm going to tell you, I don't know for sure. Um, and I'm not even sure how to pronounce this because I realize I've been pronouncing this car the wrong way for years. I think it's okay. So this is a close up of the car, right? And car buffs out there, I'm going to be sexist and say, and husbands, do you know what car this is? Because when I went down the rabbit hole, and that's as close as I can get with that. I think I don't think so, Andrea. I think it's too long. I think it is a. Do you say Citroen? I've always said Citroen. I've always reversed it for some reason, but I think it's a Citroen. I think it's a red Citroen because look, wait a minute. So this is a red Citroen, and this is a toy of a red Citroen. You see the curved window in the back? You see how it's round in the back and round in the front, right? And then look at this again, right? I mean, I don't think this is a 1960s rug. So I think we have to, and I think the Beetle came out in the 60s. Am I right about that? Or was it earlier? Because to me, this looks a lot more like that with the black top too, right? Look at that. Oops, wait a minute. Right? That definitely has a black top on it. And you see that curved window in the back, right? Could be. I mean, I could be wrong. And you see how there's not much of a grill because I also found, um, oh no, I'm not going to remember what it was. It might have been a Lincoln, but it had a huge grill. I think it must have been a Lincoln with a huge grill. And I thought this doesn't have a huge grill, and this doesn't have a huge grill. So I don't know. I don't know. But I thought it might be. So I'm going to ask you a question about. Hang on, I'm going to show you the rug again. Citron. Oh, like citron, like lemon. Oh, how weird that there's an E in it. It's like they added the E. It's just like citron. So I feel like that's the way we said. Now, wait a minute. Okay, so I'm thinking about when I lived in England. We often saw the three-wheeled cars. Is that this one isn't a three-wheeled car in the rug. This is a four-wheel. Is that a Citron too? Like the three-wheeled ones? Because that was crazy to me in like the 1990s, seeing a three-wheeled car, see many of them driving all over the place. It does look like a longer bonnet. So I don't know. I don't know anything about cars. I don't even, all I know is that that Kia Soul better start when I leave tonight. That's all I know about cars. So I looked up the Citroen, and it does have an E, so that's super confusing. But when did the Citroen come out? This is my question to you. I'm going to do it by decade, so you have a good chance. Is it 1928, 1938, or 1948? What do you think? Oh, it does say pronunciation right here. De, oh, but this is in a different language. Okay, so that doesn't really help. De cheveux. So that's two, I guess, two horsepower. De cheveux, two steam power, taxable horsepower. Okay, lots of detail. So, yeah, what do you think has an air cooled engine? I'm going to tell you the years that it came out. And I'm going to tell it to you because I know that there's a delay. And that's what helped me with figuring out what the year on this rug was, because I honestly thought that this was a 1930s, maybe a 1940s rug based, you're right, Deborah, based on the house and then the combo with the car. Because it was too sporty to be a 1920s, 1930s car. So I'm thinking later 30s or 40s. Yes, everybody got it. 48, you're right. So the Citrons were made between 1948 and 1990, right? So huge window. But I thought this was interesting because now looking at this rug, if this is the Citron, this has to be at least 1948, right? So this could make this an early 50s rug. And for me, that still works. Graphically, the way the house looks, right? There's still a huge trend in one-story ranch houses, like all over the US. It could well be, right? It makes perfect sense. It could be that I'm completely wrong and it's another car, but I think we're talking about an early 50s rug, and it looks like a Citron to me. I don't know. Interesting though. Isn't it fun when you challenge yourself over something so stupid, right? But it is a kind of a fun rabbit hole to go down. Now, here comes something else fun. So, this is another one that I found on eBay. I'm just going to refer to this at this moment as Santa on skis because the listing on eBay, it's a buy it now, free shipping. The seller is called Dwell for Good, Dwell FOR Good, vintage hand hooked framed wool rug, whimsical Santa on skis. Now, I'm going to say that's not a Santa. Come on. He is on skis. I love this piece, but that's not Santa. Like, for me, that's not Santa. He looks too young. He looks too much like a gnome or kabouter or elf. He is carrying gifts. He's wearing green pants and a blue top. For me, I'm like, I got to figure this out too. This does not, this does not sound like a Santa to me. So I looked this up and I'm going to ask you, do you know what the Santa gnomes are called? Do you know what the Santa gnomes are called? Do you know the word for a Santa gnome? And I'm going to tell it to you. This is not the trivia question because I did not know this word and I did a little bit of research here. There is a word for a Santa like gnome character and it is a gonk. Gonk. It's a thing. So, a little history about the gonks. I found this on inspirationwholesale.com. A little history about the gonks. Gonks did not originate in the UK, and in fact, they did not begin life as a Christmas decoration. The reason why they look rather like gnomes is because, in a sense, they are. Gonks stem from Nordic and Scandinavian mythology. They are meant to be something like a mix between a gnome and a hobgoblin. In the original folklore, these curious little creatures were said to take a liking to barns or houses in the colder seasons. If families treated them well, they were said to protect the family and to give them good luck. If the family did not respect the mighty little gonk, then they were said to play tricks on the family, I guess like a little leprechaun. Behind the story is the message on the importance of being welcoming and hospitable. Knowing that knowing what we do about how brilliant the Scandinavians are at making a home warm, welcoming, and peaceful, it should be of no surprise that this philosophy finds its way into their ancient folklore, because the gonk dates back to 1600 in Norway, and possibly even earlier than that. I've never heard this before. 1600. A well-known motif of Nordic folklore, the gonks, part protector, part elf on the shelf, watched over the homes, protected them from evil. And sometimes we're mischievous, and they have a long, rich history in Scandinavia. Gonk would be a great Scrabble word. It would, Karen. Isn't that funny? So that got me thinking about, I didn't know anything about gonks, but it got me thinking about gnomes. And it got me thinking about certainly the most famous gnome artist of all time. Let me see what pictures I put in here. Okay, so I did some close-ups of Santa on skis. Remember, this is an eBay listing, buy it now. And this is being sold by, let me say it one more time. Oh man, I got to speed up big time. Um, um, uh, Dwell for Good. So got me thinking about gnomes. That's his backpack, and that was a bit of a tricky one. I'm happy we solved the mystery though. Most famous gnome artist of all time, I think, is the Dutch artist Rien Poortvliet. Great name. Rien is a very common Dutch name. We had a few friends called Rien. I love that name. Poortvliet translates as port like door, and fleet like not flight but like flowing, right? Like breezy. So this is him here. He was a very famous artist. You will recognize his work. Remember this? To remember this? Did you can you remember holding this like back in the day? I'm not going to say years, because my question for you is, when did this book come out? I think we've all seen this book. If we're all crafty people and we like cozy things, you've probably held this book in your hands before. Did this book come out? I'm going to say in English, because it came out a few years earlier, obviously in Dutch, and then it came out in English in either 1957, 1967, or 1977. And again, this is by Rien Poortvliet. And he was an interesting character. He did not attend art school, and his family discouraged him from being an artist. He said, my family thought that artists were, a little bit dangerous, and all those naked women and all that drinking at night. Oh, hold on one second. Oh, where did I put the keys? Do you see them? Oh, right here. Sorry. Thank you. So he was discouraged from being an artist. That scared me. His dad wanted him to pursue a profession that would involve a stable income. So he began a career in advertising, and he began drawing scenes of families for soap companies, like really cozy Victorian type scenes. But Poortvliet took much more pleasure in the work he did on the side for other publishers. He illustrated a few other books. He was also a passionate hunter. So I'm gonna say I love his gnome books, and there's several. There's many over the years. He does a lot of other books, and these are the first books that I can remember. You're all right. It is 1977. These are all books I can remember in my mind as being the first example of coffee table books that were like, they look like sketchbooks. It looked like you were peeking at someone's diary, right? And it was a wonderful feeling looking at all the little notes. But I have to say, I have all of his books, right? From being born in the Netherlands and living for so long in the Netherlands, I have all of his books, and they're all lovely. But because he was a very passionate hunter, his books that are not about gnomes are extremely graphic, extremely graphic. So be prepared for that, because they are beautiful studies, but they are very graphic. So, Amber Alert. So I just wanted to show you. Okay, I was going to say PG-13 warning on this. So this is also in there. I'm going to flip by that pretty quick. In case you're planning on showing that to your grandchildren, there's cans. There's gnome cans in there. So be careful about that, because it's just like dead animals. It's fairly surprising. Did that surprise you? Sorry. I think, did we all own this? I mean, I loved this book, and I was interested too. Of course, I wanted to see the gnome boobs and everything. You want to see that stuff when you're a kid. That's super exciting. Anything that you can see that's naughty, right, is interesting and exciting. But mostly these books are just beautiful. Really great studies of nature, of these little gnomes, and the gnomes are good, right? They're doing all kinds of sweet things. They're living very companionably with animals, with little forest folk. They're doing sweet everyday things, and they're having really healthy relationships, not just the boobs and the sex and all that stuff. But some of them were a little bit raunchy. But stuff like this is just absolutely so precious, isn't it? Really, really spooning some food some broth to the frogs. I mean, they really are so lovely. So if you've forgotten about them, look on eBay or look on Amazon. They're all there, and they really are so cozy and charming. Just a great memory. Now, here's an interesting rug. I'm not a big fan of the welcome mat or the demi rug, but this is a pretty one. This is on eBay. It's called Handmade Hooked Rug Poodles flowers. This is 38 by 23 and a half, and it is signed NB. It's sold by Bags, the word Bags, 2468. And this costs $375 plus 13 to ship. So I don't usually say this because I don't usually give my opinion about value. I don't like to rain on anybody's parade, even strangers. But I will say that's a lot for this rug because this is not an old rug, right? I would think this is a 1980s rug. I would bet that this is a 1980s rug. I don't think it's a day before, and I don't think it's a day after. It could be early 90s, but color-wise, look at what we're looking at. It also had something heavy on it on the left-hand side for a long time, so those loops will probably bounce back, and it's got a little bit of loss at the bottom. It's a very steep price for this. It is a lovely rug, though, and I have not seen this pattern before. So, $375 sounds good to you, and you're like, I love, they're not exactly poodles, are they? But I love the rug. I love the dogs. I certainly love the Dusty Rose and the Wedgwood Blue, that's for sure. It's just a hefty price for a not very old rug, but it is absolutely lovely. These dogs, right? They remind me of a statue. What region of England are these dogs? If you were to get a pair of statues like this, what would you call them? Blank dogs. And the blank is the region in England, right? Do you have the word? I'm just going to have another sip of my water. That Wendy's hamburger must have been that Wendy's quadruple burger must have been so salty. King Charles, yes, Gail, but the region, I think they are King Charles for sure because of the tip of the ear there. But Staffordshire, that's it, Staffordshire. So these are known as Staffordshire dogs. You're also right, Gail. These are known as Staffordshire dogs, and this is a big deal. So Staffordshire is like a region, right? And there are this is known for like pottery and ceramics as part of England. So there are other very famous companies that are from, hang on, I'm just making sure I can show you more slides. I just want to show you close-ups of this rug. It is a lovely rug. You see that the Staffordshire dogs are two color. I think that's a nice touch. I like the outlining in the gray and the black. Interesting. I mean, it is beautifully done. It's certainly a number 3 cut. Real Staffordshire looks like this, right? So these are on Etsy right now. These are from the year 1860, and these cost $235 for the pair. This is a real collectible. People really, really love these dogs. I love these dogs. If I was going to get a pair, this would be the pair for me. This is on a website called Biscuit, and these are $275 for the pair, right? I just love that they're pink. The Staffordshire countryside looks like this. Yes, please. Yes, please. Do you think green is beautiful? I mean, my word, right? Absolutely my word. So my question for you, Ellie says, Berman's department store, Rose Berman and her daughter, Judith. I wasn't thinking of Berman's. It's yes, Berman's. But there was another one that was, it's going to drive me crazy. Because I know I've talked about it a million times. There were like 3 in Hartford. This was way before I lived in Connecticut. There were 3 in Hartford that were all on the same street that were kind of diagonally across from each other. And it sounds like it was very companionable, like the life then. Like there was enough business for everything was in Hartford. The whole insurance business was in Hartford, right? Think about Gilmore Girls and that the parents live in Hartford. Like that part of Hartford, it's not downtown, that's for sure, but it's on the outskirts. And that's like, it was such a big money place. There was meat on the bone for everybody. That's one of the other stores. I feel like the third one began with an H, but the one I'm thinking of, it's going to drive me crazy. It's going to come to me at 3:13. So this is my question for you about the Staffordshire dogs. Staffordshire is a region, and there are other pottery and ceramic manufacturers in that region. Which one of these companies is not from Staffordshire? Okay, not from Staffordshire. Spode, Wedgwood, or Roseville? What do you think? Staffordshire has been the center of ceramic production in Great Britain since the early 17th century, and its porcelain has reached popularity on a global stage and market. The country has made a historical mark for itself within the pottery industry because of its prolific production. I'm going to just wait 1 second and see. No, I'm not. I'm going to go forward because I'm worried about the time. So I'm going to give you the answer. Spode, well, let me show you. Spode and Wedgwood are in Staffordshire. So that means that Roseville is not. I made that one up. Roseville, yes, good one, Linda. Good one, Jay. Well, Jay, you would know that with your antiques business, of course. Yes. So let's talk about this for a minute because this is interesting. I don't know that I would know if I didn't do a lot of antiquing and watch a lot of British antique shows. Dave, you're right. Roseville is the odd one out. Good job, Priscilla, too. So, okay, so Roseville is a little bit different. This is what Roseville looks like. Roseville was founded in 1890 in Roseville, Ohio. And Roseville Pottery was one of the fastest growing pottery companies at the turn of the century. After incorporating three other ceramic plants from 1895 to 1901, the company relocated to Zanesville, Ohio, where it remained in business until it eventually closed its doors in 1954. So this is what Roseville looks like. I have to say I am a huge fan of Roseville. Not every pattern, but I am a huge fan. And one of the interesting things about Roseville is that while it's collectible now, Roseville used to be at like the florist shop, at the equivalent of the drugs at the drugstore. They absolutely the drugstore. And if you got flowers, they would come in a pot, right? Not in a plastic cellophane wrapper. They would come in a vessel that was Roseville, right? So at the time, these were almost not disposable. I mean, people appreciated having them during the early 20th century, very hard times, right? Anything pretty was welcome. But it wasn't like they were priceless when they came out. They were kind of like not throwaways, but you know what I mean. They came free with the flowers. So, I mean, it's just interesting to think that that was the market for them and that you could have gotten them at the drugstore when you picked out flowers to bring to someone. They would come in a Roseville pot. And now that pot could be worth, if it's like Futura or one of those, it could be worth many, many, many hundreds, right? I thought that was interesting. This is me eating the quadruple burger and now me suffering. I can't even drink the wine because I'm so thirsty. Okay, so here's another interesting thing I have for you. Let's see. So well done. You all are killing it. Colleen, great to see you. Great to see you. Diane, that's a great guess. That's a great guess. Keep in any of them could be right. Like any of them could be right. Anything could be right. So this is the next one that we're looking at. This is a vintage hook drug of Alice in Wonderland. This is 30 by 60 with a gray background. It is listed on eBay, and that is how it is listed. Vintage hook drug, Alice in Wonderland, 30x60, gray background, 1955. Yes, Judy, kind of like the Depression glass that was given away with household products. Absolutely. Absolutely. And the same thing with like moving carnivals and fairs at that time, right? Like in the prize booth, you know, you wouldn't get like a crappy stuffed animal. You would get like china, like you would get dinnerware, and you would try to collect the whole set, playing a crazy carnival game. People were so thoughtful then about what other people needed. And it wasn't really about what you know, just the privilege of having like some china when you had broken some stuff and you didn't have the money to buy it at a department store. It was just so nice that so many things worked this way in the early 20th century. I don't know if we have exactly the same sentiment nowadays. I wish it was a little more obvious if we did. Um, Andrea says the homemaker pattern dinner service was sold in Woolworths. It's now collectible. So glad I've got a set. Oh, and is homemaker the glass or is that one of the? So you're in England, so it's probably not the Roseville. That must be the glass. Is that glass or china set, Andrea? That's interesting. I like this conversation. I'd like to see a book on all kinds of patterns and giveaways, starting with like feed sacks, right? That were meant as a partial gift, at purchase, point of purchase gift during hard times, as like what's the word? What's the word when you do that? Like when Wendy's doesn't do it anymore, but like not a promotion, but there's another word that begins with a P when you're giving something away. I'm stumbling for words tonight. Oh, the Staffordshire. Oh, interesting. Um, oh, is that your answer, buddy? The answer is Roseville. I'm curious to know about the homemaker dinner set, but that you might mean Staffordshire for that. So this Alice in Wonderland rug really slayed me, to say the least. April said, my grandpa always thought it was so funny that companies used to give you things, and now you pay to advertise for them by purchasing their name brand on your hats and shirts. That's so true. That's so true. I think about that all the time. Like, what else can I do for you, kind of thing, right? Um, Lagniappe, if you're from Louisiana, Lagniappe. Oh, interesting. Interesting. Oh, that's like a promotional gift. Um, Premium. Wendy, that's it. Premium. Thank you. Thank you so much. That's exactly the word I'm looking for. Andrea, China. Oh, it's a China set. Black and white, includes cutlery designs. How cute. Does the cutlery have like a China handles on it too? I'm going to have to look that up. I'm going to have to take a screenshot of that. That's interesting. I like this subject. I don't know what it is. I just like the idea of people getting these premiums and being super excited, right? Can't you picture it? Like super excited. It must have felt like a windfall. Alice in Wonderland. This is currently on eBay. The seller is called Maine, as in the state of Maine. Maine Love 13. It's $800. Well worth it. Remember, this is 30 by 60. You have to place a bid on this. I absolutely love this. I'm going to ask this as a side question. Who do you think the designer on this is? Right? That's not the question I have for you for this, but who do you think the designer on this is? Um, I'm going to ask you, that's one question, right? So feel free to answer that, and I will tell you the answer. I'm going to give you a quote. Let's look at this a little bit closer up too, because this is such an extraordinary rug. If I had an extra 800 just sitting around in my pants, I would definitely snap this up because I am so in love with this. It's a little bit Agatha Christie too, isn't it? Like just the sweep of the playing cards and the pink and black diamond border. Oh man, and the super sophisticated gray. The design pattern itself has cutlery, chairs. Oh my gosh. Oh, that sounds amazing. So there is a little bit of damage, right? It's so well done, and it's enormous. It's another small cut. It could be a 3, could be a 4, because this is big. This is a big rug. It's hard to tell the scale with something this big. Isn't it gorgeous? I really want this. I really want this. And a little bit of tweed, right? Because that's the front of the rug. A little bit of tweed. It's obviously done on burlap, and there's a little bit of loss here and there. I'm going to ask you the question, and then I'm going to show you some other stuff that I think is interesting to know as a rug maker. So your question is, number one, who do you think designed that rug? I know you're going to get it on the first one. I'm going to ask you a question about Alice in Wonderland, right? Because the text is so dense, it's so silly, it's very nonsensy at times, very mathematical, embedded mathematics too. But there's a lot of silliness happening with Lewis Carroll, isn't there? So I'm going to give you 3 quotes, and you tell me which one is not from Alice in Wonderland. So think about this. Number 1, but that's just the trouble with me. I give myself very good advice, but I seldom follow it. That's number 1. Number 2, save a tiny slice of lemon and a teaspoonful of honey, and what to do for dinner since we haven't any money? And what can you expect if we haven't any dinner but to lose our teeth and eyelashes and to just keep growing thinner? That's number 2. Number 3, twinkle, twinkle, little bat, how I wonder what you're at. Up and above the world you fly, like a tea tray in the sky. Those are all a little bit crazy, right? So I know, Joan, it looks like yarn. It's super fine cut wool, super fine cut. Let's look at it again. It does look like yarn because it's so thin. Definitely wool. Definitely looking at the Bliss or Fraser cutter here. Super fine, super fine. All the same size. Look at the 2 colors to that little kind of fern looking tree. Andrea says number 1. So Andrea, you think the one that is not a Lewis Carroll is, but that's just the trouble with me. I give myself a very good advice, but I seldom follow it. Deborah says number 2, the tiny slice, the one that ends in, but to lose our teeth and eyelashes and to keep growing thinner. And Linda says number 3, twinkle. So a vote for each. The one that was not in Alice in Wonderland is the number 2. The save a tiny slice of lemon and a teaspoon of honey and what to do for dinner since we haven't any money, that is not from Alice in Wonderland. That is a contemporary of Lewis Carroll, one of my favorite writers, Edward Lear, another nonsense poet, and it's from his poem called Two Bachelors. And I had no trouble pulling the poem up, but I had trouble pulling the year up that the poem was written because it opened something on my computer that wanted to give my computer a virus, so I shut down quickly. But I saw something that said like 1940 or 1950 something, which is not possible because I know that Edward Lear died. I want to say something like 1890, I think 1898, something like that. Definitely before 1900. So it's that kind of an age. And the poem again was called The Two Bachelors, and that was spelled with a T. C-H. Andrea, is bachelors always spelled with a T in Britain? Like, do you add the T in the middle there? Because we just do B-A-C-H without the T. Just another side note. So, I started looking at the Alice in Wonderland rug, and Nobody guessed, but it is a Pearl McGowan design. As you can imagine, all Pearl McGowan designs are now owned by Cushing, Lucky Cushing, right? But absolutely beautiful pattern. But it got me thinking about other Disney rugs. And I looked up Disney rugs to see maybe if there was another Alice in Wonderland out there or the pattern for it. And I found this. And I've seen this before, this Snow White rug. And this listing said, I'm not going to go into great detail with these. This listing said Snow White pre-Disney 100. Okay. It's $100 plus shipping. This one, Snow White, didn't say pre-Disney because these are not pre-Disney. This one is $260. It's the same rug. You see how it has the same fringe on the side? So this one was 100. This one is 260. This one is 40, right? It's all the same rug. This one is 125. Yeah, but I have seen the spelling, Andrea, with the T often. I think you must have dropped the T at some point because all Victorian stuff does use the T. At least in England. I don't know about in the US, but in England I see the T a lot with reading old books. Isn't that weird? Oh, have another seltzer, Dave. That'll help. That'll help. Don't you slink off to the corner and hit repeat on your Anne Murray CD. Although that sounds like a really fun night, I have to say. Drinking cider and putting Anne Murray on repeat. I would sit there and listen to it over and over with you. This is 125. It's obviously the same rug. It's not a handmade hooked rug. And that's my point. Look at the rug, right? We can see that this is not a hooked rug and it is not handmade. So be careful. That's the point. Be careful because there's 7 examples of this rug on eBay right now, and they're all different prices from $39 to $260, and almost all of them say handmade, and they are not handmade. And they're also not pre-Disney because you know what? The same company made this. Obviously, this is not pre-Disney. This is a Disney character. So be careful. People list stuff on eBay and they absolutely don't know what they're talking about. There are a lot of Disney rugs, and why are there a lot of Disney rugs? Copyright has been a moving target for a long time, right? And these rugs, they must have had some kind of a licensing deal because I would think that these are 1960s, 1970s era, more like tapestries, but they were meant for the floor. They were woven and they were tufted, meaning they have a clipped pile, but they are not hand hooked rugs. Absolutely not. But there are hand hooked Disney rugs out there, and I happened to find a couple, and they really, really blew me away. At Z, the letter Z and symbol K, letter K, Antiques, I saw these two. And I thought, whoa, okay, so this is exciting. This is an early Mickey and Minnie, kind of as babies, right, playing. I don't know if these were commercial designs. Could not chase them any further. Super rare. Together, these sell for $4,500, right? You can buy them today. They are available. They are mounted professionally on frames of this exact shape. It's a lot of money, but you know what? These are the real deal. And are these commercial designs? I don't know. It didn't say on the page. I don't know if Z and K Antiques knows. What I do know is if I was a grandmother at that time and my kids loved watching Mickey and Minnie, and I had any artistic ability, I might try to make rugs like this. But then again, it's a pair and they're both so good, it makes me think they might be printed or stamped designs, right? Commercial designs. I don't know. But it's a beautiful pair and you can see they're beautifully done. It certainly was not a kit. What lovely examples. I also want to let you know that the earliest version of Mickey Mouse will become copyright free next year in 2024. Right? I keep my eye on copyright stuff like a hawk, and they will be available next year. So it's something to think about, right? We won't have to fight or have like Cold Wars on Facebook when people post something of Mickey or Minnie done in punch needle and then other people writing passive aggressive things for the next 6 weeks, because it will be copyright free at that point, just these characters. Beautiful rugs. But then I found this on Pinterest and I'm thinking, yeah, that's not a commercial design. And I also was thinking about the family of Molly and I Toby, because remember I went to a funeral in their family and I was getting to know the family and weaseling in because I want to write about her desperately. And I was trying to gather as much information as I could. And one of the neighbors on Rumstick Point, where Molly lived, said that Molly made a Mickey Mouse rug for her sister who loved Mickey Mouse. And it's not this, obviously, this is much older. But it just goes to show there can be a lot of Disney rugs out there. And obviously, these are way more valuable than the first ones that I showed you, right? This one. So back to Snow White for our trivia question. Again, there are 70 online. This one is, you haven't seen yet. This one is 95. Hold on. Let me just come back to. Let me have. I'm gonna switch to the wine just for a little sip. Hang on. The question that I have for you, Snow White. It's a Snow White question. Talking to fairy tales, right? Um, Snow White is an 1820 fairy tale, right? Originates the year 1820. What country does it originate from? England, Germany, or Italy? What do you think? Um, I'm going to be careful about what I tell you while I wait for some responses. It's a fairy tale, just to remind you, that features such elements as the magic mirror, the poisoned apple. These are tropes, right? The glass coffin. Does it feature the glass coffin, or is that Sleeping Beauty? I guess that is Snow. Of course, it's Snow White because the seven dwarves are standing around it crying, right? Yeah, yeah, the glass coffin. That's such a weird motif, isn't it? The characters of the evil queen and the seven dwarfs. And interesting, I found this out too. The seven dwarfs were given those the names that they were given in Disney. Those were given at the making of the Disney movie. Those were not the names. The original story. Yes, it is Germany. Good job to both of you. It is Germany because it's a Grimm's brothers story, right? It was collected from oral, storytelling traditions. But it's in the Grimm's fairy tale book, and it was put into more anthologies after that. But 1812 is the first time, so German is right. So they were not given names in the original story. It was Snow White was made in 1912 as a Broadway play, and the dwarves were given names in the play, but not the same names as the 1937 Disney film. The This is so funny. Hang on. Okay, the names of the original names of the dwarves were none, according to Grimm's brothers. But on Broadway, they were called. I'm going to be careful here. Blick, Flick, Glick, Pick, Key, Snick, and Wick. Key is, I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, Quee. Interesting, right? Did the Grimm's brothers collect only German stories? They did, Judy. They did, because this was the time of, I think the not the Franco-Prussian War. I can't remember what war it would have been at this time, but they were literally panicked that the German culture was about to disappear because they were about to be overtaken. I did that because it's so ironic. Um, but they were so afraid that they were going to lose like their authentic culture, and the brothers started to try to shore up the oral tradition of storytelling, folk stories, not children's stories, specifically folk stories, because these were not meant for children. They collected as many as they could, as quickly as they could, and wrote them down. And of course, the German culture still exists, thank goodness, right? Because my brother-in-law is German, and he's one of the greatest people I know. I love Germany. They did not lose their culture, but they worried that they would at that time, so they started to put together anthologies. And the Grimm's brothers were just one example of people who were worried about documenting and securing the history, the storytelling, and the culture of Germany, thinking there would be no future Germany. Now, here's a funny one. Here's a funny one for you. Wasn't that funny about the names, though? What crazy names. Now, this is one that really got me, really triggered me in a bad way. I'm not even going to describe this in great detail, but this rug was described as mid-century modern. Ready? Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Mid-century modern handmade rug. Okay, so this is on eBay right now. I'm going to say, no, I'm not, I hope I'm not a jerk. This is not a mid-century modern character by any means. For goodness sake, this is Garfield, right? So my question for you is, okay, so no, I'm going to ask you a different question. The, Garfield is a comic, right? You know this, of course you know this. It's a comic, and the comic was a nationally syndicated comic. It was popular almost immediately in 1978, right? So I wouldn't call that mid-century, and this certainly is not a mid-century style. It chronicles the life of the title character Garfield the cat and his human owner John and Odie the dog. And there are other characters. So my trivia question for you is, what was John's last name? Is it Arbuckle, Isherwood, or Atwood? Garfield's owner John, who's a bit of a dummy, What is his surname? Arbuckle, Isherwood, or Atwood? I have two Garfield trivia questions for you, actually. I just thought this was so funny. We are so into Garfield in our house. It's crazy. Teddy collects vintage Garfield toys, like only from the 70s and 80s, right? He doesn't want anything newer than the 80s. He's a big vintage man. We have quite a few Garfield toys. And you know how Garfield, I should have put this slide in, but he looked very different when he was first drawn, right? Before it was like a national syndication. He looked much more realistic, much more like a pen and ink kind of a drawing, not as cartoony, not as funny looking. I love Garfield too. It is Arbuckle, Judy. Good job. It is Arbuckle. And here's another question for you about you're all good. You all remember. We've been watching the cartoons from the 80s. They're like at least half an hour each, and they are fantastic. They're super corny. They're like the Hallmark version of any cartoon. They're super corny, and Teddy loves watching them at night. I love watching them with him. You all did great. You got it. Now here's a harder Garfield question. So in the comic, because ran for so many years, I don't know how many years. I should have looked that up. Um, Garfield takes on different personas, right? He's a bit of a schizophrenic cat, isn't he? He takes on different personas, and when he dons his cape, which he sometimes does, let me show you a picture of what that looks like. He is called the Caped Avenger, right? So you can look at this little comic. He calls himself the Caped Avenger. This is a regular part of this series. So this happens often. He fights evil, or he at least attempts to. And the Caped Avenger is not his only alias. During the run of the Garfield series, is it still running? He had other aliases. Which one of these was not a Garfield alias? Count Cat, Mystic Cat, or Banana Man? What do you think? You think I'm tricking you? Is it a double bluff there? Which one is not a Garfield alias? Count Cat, Mystic Cat, or Banana Man? Things you didn't know you'd be talking about on Friday night, right? I actually have three questions for you. I'm going to wait because of the delay. I'm going to show you that, and I'm going to start answering this for you because I'm going to start showing you examples of some of these other characters. Hang on. Ooh, ooh, ooh. There we go. Well, here is Count Cat. So this is one. This is not the correct answer because here's Count Cat. So he's still using like the same blue blanket, but he takes on a different personality. So Count Cat is real. And you know who else is real? I don't know if you fell for it. Banana Man. Banana Man was real. So yeah, there's quite a few of both of those. The one that I made up was Mystic Cat. That one was not real. Now, if you like this era of pop culture character, did you like this character too? I mean, I did. I did very much. I was a little too old. Oh, last question I wanted to ask for you before we hit Strawberry Shortcake. And that was a latch hook kit, right? That was a latch hook. What was the name? Okay, I'm not even giving you multiple choices here. If you get this one without Googling, you are the queen or the king of the world. Okay, that's the highest distinction in our family. Usually requires jumping off of a rowboat in my clothing, fully clothing, about to go to dinner kind of situation to become the queen of the world. But you could do it in a snap if you know what is the name of the diner that John and Garfield used to go to. No multiple choice. Just do you remember? And while you're thinking about that, I'm going to take one sip and we're going to transition to this latchuk rug of strawberry shortcake. This is the era, right? 80s, 90s of licensing, a lot of licensing deals. And strawberry shortcake was a big deal. Do you know the backstory to strawberry shortcake and how she became so lucrative for the makers? Hang on one second. I just love talking about strawberry shortcake. I just love, because this is when I was young, right? And again, I was a little too old. This was more my sister. But I loved strawberry shortcake. I loved the way that these things smelled. I loved the way they looked. I loved the story. The character strawberry shortcake, wait a minute, let me just make sure. Okay, I just wanted to be sure I wasn't going to screw up the trivia question. So this is a latch hook rug. We'll just look at this first. So there's this one. Hang on, I'm worried. Okay. Yes. Okay. This is okay. I'm just trying to remember where my question is. So these are some of the characters, and maybe you remember them. Do you remember how they were made into dolls and their hair smelled a little bit like fruit, a little bit like burnt plastic or burnt hair, but very, very delicious and exciting. And they each had a little pet that was kind of like a little familiar that traveled everywhere with them. And oh God, it was so exciting. It was so exciting. And this is how it started. The character of Strawberry Shortcake was originally created by Barbie Sargent, who was then working as a freelance artist for American Greetings. The character first appeared on a Laurel Valentine's Day greeting card in 1972, the year that I was born. At that time, the character was simply called Girl with a Daisy or Strawberry Girl. Let me come back to you here. Oh, I loved the smells. Frank's Diner. That's a great guess, Andrea. That's a great guess. No, I'm going to hold a little while before I say. It's a very hard question. I mean, maybe they also went to Frank's Diner, but that's not the main one anyway. So she's originally known as Girl with a Daisy, which reminds me of Holly Hobby, right? That definitely reminds me of Holly Hobby, or Strawberry Girl, and was depicted holding a daisy while wearing an orange bonnet with a strawberry print. So that strawberry hat was in place. Rex Connors of American Greetings, he was the staff art director, knew that the card was very popular and was determined that this was due to the strawberry motif. So he requested that Barbie create 4 cards with a strawberry-ish outfit for the mega test market, whatever that is. And he requested, so she completed the assignment in early July 1977, and she sent American Greetings 4 full-color leader cards depicting the Strawberry Shortcake character in full color. And leader cards were used by American Greetings for consumer test purposes. These tests marked the first time that the public saw Strawberry Shortcake with the new design, which received a hugely positive reception. So, in the late 1970s, further Strawberry Shortcake concept art was drawn by a different artist now, Muriel Farian, an illustrator also working for American Greetings. So, this starts out as a greeting card in the juvenile and humorous card department. And then she designed 32 subsequent characters from that one character. Now we're getting into toys and licensing, right? Because as soon as we've got this much material, other people are going to jump in. So the Strawberry Shortcake line of characters each has their own fruit or dessert themed name with matching clothing that is themed, with the fruit or the dessert. And they each have a dessert or fruit named pet. Like the Strawberry Shortcake doll, all of the other characters had their hair scented to match their dessert theme, and the characters lived and played in a magical world known as Strawberry Land. Now here it comes, 1970. So only 2 years later, 1979, Kenner Products, the toy manufacturer, licenses the character and releases the first Strawberry Shortcake doll. And it resembled a rag doll, like Raggedy Ann or Andy, right? It resembled that kind of a doll. It wasn't the plasticky ones yet with the scented hair. So it came complete with freckles, a mop of red yarn curls, a bonnet with strawberries printed on it to reflect that the toy was a rag doll. It was designed by Muriel Farian again. And these characters were also designed not just by Muriel, but her sister, Susan Trentel. So it was like 2 sisters working together. Can you imagine how fun that was at night? Maybe sitting around the enamel table, making tea or whatever, and going, oh, how about blueberry muffin, right? I mean, how about orange blossom? Like, wouldn't that have been such a moment in time? I would love to read a book about this. I really would, or see a movie about this, like a young adult movie about this. I would love to see that. During the 1980s, Strawberry Shortcake became popular with young girls through the U.S. At that time, there were many related products like sticker albums, clothing, bedding, a video game by Parker Brothers entitled Strawberry Shortcake Musical Matchups for the Atari, several TV specials, obviously lots of dolls and more dolls. So Kenner was really cashing in. In May of 1983, following a court case, copyrights to Strawberry Shortcake were granted to Barb Sargent from the American. So there was obviously the person who first drew her and came up with the original concept was feeling upset at this point. They probably should have dealt with that before a decade went by, more than a decade, but that's aggravating. So anyway, she probably made a lot of money and wrote over the rights to American Greetings, and so the two sisters were able to continue with different characters and stuff. So I have some questions for you regarding Strawberry Shortcake. I know that this is a niche thing. Now these are some of the characters that you might remember, but there are more characters, and I wonder, do you remember the name of this character? Do you want to make a guess? Now look for some clues here, right? Because we know they're fruits and desserts. I don't remember the name. 5 years ago I would have, because I forced Jocelyn to collect these. And we put a display up at the local library of all her Strawberry Shortcake stuff. I think I still have it. We had the buildings, we had the game, we had the cards, we had the old maid. We had all of the dolls with the hair and the smells and everything. And I loved it, but she did not. It was just like the Teddy Bear's Picnic. I was loving it. She was not loving it. And this stuff didn't smell that strong anymore. So that didn't help. But do you remember this character? Mm-hmm. Good one, April. That's lemon meringue. How about this one? Oh, God, I just loved these characters. They are going to get harder. I've got like 4 of them for you. Let me know. The color is going to help you with this one. And I'm going to say this is a dessert. So see if you can guess this. And I'm going to move to the next one. I'm going to know if you get it right. Who is this character and who is this character? This is a really deep dive, right? This is like, Dave, you got lemon meringue. See if you can guess the green one now. And see if you can guess this one. Now, I'm going to give you a clue, right? This is a French themed one because you see she's got like a fleur de lis on her apron. She's got the stripy top and she's got a beret and a poodle. So this is going to have a French name, this character. It is a clever one. So I'm looking for the green one and I'm looking for this one. And can you name the 2 baddies? Do you remember this character? This was a baddie. This was a real baddie. And his counterpart was a female baddie, bad character, this character. Key Lime Pie Alley, that is a great guess. No, they maybe should have gone for that. No, she's called Lime Chiffon. I like key lime pie better, but this is lime chiffon. This one is extremely tough. Not peppermint patty. That's not a bad idea. Um, it's kind of funny because I'm trying to make the Josephine Valley of the Dolls. I did this last time. Suzette Josephine. Come on. What's her name? Valley of the Dolls writer. God, I know you're going to get it before I do. This character is called Crepe Suzette. I remember that person who wrote Valley of the Dolls also wrote Goodnight Josephine about her poodle. So it's kind of crossing wires here. Pepper and Patty, I think they might have gotten in trouble for it's a funny idea. This is Crepe Suzette. So that's kind of funny too. That's a stretch. I mean, 30-something characters, that's a stretch. Does anybody remember the bad guy? It's not Gargamel, right? Because that was the Smurfs, because that was the first name that came into my mind. This was the Purple Pie Man, and he was very evil. He must have hated children, and he hated baked goods. Sour grapes, and her character was a snake. She was really miserable. They were both really horrible adults, right, in this child's world. Evil villains, right? So Sour Grapes and Purple Pie Man. So my question for you with all of this stuff is this was a spinoff of the Strawberry Shortcake series, except this series, I can't show you many pictures because most of it includes the name of the series. This spinoff involved the names of flowers instead of fruits and desserts. Do you remember this franchise? This was much smaller than Strawberry Shortcake. I'm going to push my luck and see if I can show you one more. Okay, I think I can show you this, right? And the baddie here was like a bug and a spider. The bug was like the little sidekick, the little yes man. This was a hard one. So, I mean, I'd be super impressed if you got it. Oh, by the way, it was Irma's Diner for Garfield. It was Irma's Diner. I think I can maybe show you one more. I'm really pushing my luck here. Yeah. So this is what the characters look like. Polly Pockets, April, that's Jacqueline Suzanne. Thank you, Dave. That's it. Valley of the Dolls. April, Polly Pockets, that's a great one. Now you got me wanting to go on eBay and look for the Polly Pockets. I was a little too old for that too, but I'm now a little bit crazy about them. They're adorable. This was Rose Petal Place. So this was its own franchise, and it wanted to do, these books are fantastic. I love the Strawberry Shortcakes, but I have to say, at least in terms of reading them to my kids, I like the Rose Petal Place better. They're so cute. They're very moralistic. They're very, very sweet. Very, Dave, very sweet. They're really, really cute. My daughter Jocelyn hated all of this. This too. She hated this too. But I'm keeping these because I really enjoyed them, and they really put me into a place. And okay, so there's Strawberry Shortcake, there's Rose Petal Place, and then do you remember this? This is the last question of this sort. This is kind of an urban legend. This franchise existed, and this had more to do, again, we are talking about sweets. This is a much smaller franchise, and there's an urban legend that cannot be discounted or disproven that says that during the era of Strawberry Shortcake, um, toy licensing was such a big deal, and Kenner was really restrictive about who they wanted. Oh, I'm sorry about the gardening crisis, Sharon. They were really restrictive about who they wanted to work with. And Color Forms could not make a deal with Kenner for Strawberry Shortcake or Rose Petal Place. So they came out with their own small franchise to do as Color Forms. And this is what it was. Do you remember the name of this franchise? It was much smaller. It was kind of a knockoff. It had a little bit of Strawberry Shortcake feel to it, but it also had a little bit of the Rose Petal Place in terms of the costuming. It was revolved around a sweet shop. I also have to say I love this. So I'm not going to pause for too long because it's getting late and I have one more question. It was called Sugar and Spice. This was very hard. This is the Color Form set. Isn't this delicious? I mean, isn't this fantastic to look at? I would love to have a rug store shop with a kitchen, with a big counter island, with all of those warming up dishes, and this on a bookshelf, right? I would feel like I was actually living in the 80s again. I absolutely love it. And they had a scratch and sniff set. Oh, the Care Bears were great too. I love the Care Bears and the merch that went with that. This was made as a latch hook kit too. And I was really tempted to get it. I'm still tempted to get it. But you know what really and this was made by a company called Betty's, right? Not as a hooked set, but as a latch set. And it looks just like this. So this is out there. Sugar and Spice. You see how the faces are done by cutting out a piece of paper. That's the part that I don't like, the realistic faces, right? So it shows you inside the box, you see that picture on the bottom, they're showing you cutting out the face, and then you're like pasting it onto the latch backing to get this. I would so want this if I felt like you could really make that face look normal. I would so want this, but I'm not sure that you could with a big open backing like latch. But I love this. I wish that the picture was a little bit more colorful. I wish it was more like, like that. I mean, I love the way this looks. It's super cheerful, super fun. Last rug of the evening, moving away from pop culture. We're still a little bit in pop culture. I couldn't go too far with this because I was in a site that was called Heirloom, not like Louise Zeisser Heirloom. It was just called Heirloom, and it said Forbidden Domain, and it wouldn't open. So what I could see when I was looking at this, I thought this kind of goes along with the Strawberry Shortcake. It looks a little bit Holly Hoppy too, doesn't it? I just really liked this. I thought this was really lovely. I would want to box this out of being a demi rug and being more of a rectangle, but I absolutely love the idea of the rainbow. So I was trying to click on the pictures of it, and it kept shutting my computer down, one of those. I thought, look at how pretty this is. Do you see the color change in the grass? Do you see the color change in the rainbow? Right? Isn't this like super, super charming? This was for sale for $475, but because I couldn't open the page, I couldn't tell if it was still for sale or what. So it's obviously on burlap. It's done. It looks fantastic. It looks ready to be finished. When I saw this picture, I thought, I think I know whose design this was. So I kept clicking and getting shut down, and then I got there. Pearl McGowan. All roads lead to Pearl McGowan. It's true, isn't it? Even all rainbows. So my question for you is not necessarily about that lovely pattern, about the book called The Rainbow. The Rainbow is a book by which famous British author? D.H. Lawrence, Edgar Wallace, or Edith Nesbit? The Rainbow. D.H. Lawrence, Edgar Wallace, or Edith Nesbit? This is the last question of the night. I'm going to tell you what the story is about while you guess. The Rainbow tells the story of 3 generations of the Brangwen family, a dynasty of farmers and craftsmen who live in the East Midlands of England on the borders of Nottinghamshire and Derbyshire. The book spans roughly a period of 65 years from the 1840s to 1905, so like an epic family saga, and shows how the love relationships of the Brangwens change against the backdrop of increasing industrialization in Britain. The first central character, Tom Brangwen, is a farmer whose experience of the world does not stretch beyond these 2 counties, while the last, Ursula, his granddaughter, studies at university and becomes a teacher in the progressively urbanized capitalist industrial world. And she, Ursula, has the last line of the book. It's not going to be a spoiler, but the last line of the book has a vision of a rainbow towering over the earth. So this is like a utopian kind of an ending to a book. A vision of a rainbow towering over the earth and promising the dawn, a new dawn for humanity, right? So it's not going to be a happy book. And the last line is, she saw in the rainbow the earth's new architecture. The old, brittle corruption of houses and factories swept away. The world built up in a living fabric of truth, fitting to the overarching heaven. I thought that is so beautiful. So there's your rainbow, right? A little bit contrived, but there's your rainbow. Not Nesbit. I think Nesbit was the Railroad Kids. Nesbit was a juvenile author, I think. Andrea, you'd probably know better. It's D.H. Lawrence, right? So it's not one of his sons and lovers. It's not like one of his sexy books. It's a family saga, and it sounds wonderful. I don't know this book. I know some of his other books. I don't know this one. It sounds heavy. And it does sound like a bit of a utopian book, but I'm not against that. It would be something I would listen to on Amazon. Might not commit to 12 hours, but I would definitely listen to it. Judy says, oh, given that context, I changed my answer. Lawrence was all about the loss of culture. I'm sorry. It was a good clue, though, right? I think that was it's a beautiful ending for that book. He was very good at cobbling and making his point very lyrically and poetically, wasn't he? He was a fantastic writer. That was the last question of the night. We did it. We're only 3 minutes over. That was fun. Y'all did so well. That was a lot of fun. I always have fun playing trivia with you. I always have fun on cocktail night. Great guessing. I love the color forms too. You know, I don't know if they still make color forms. I see them sometimes at yard sales and stuff. 'Tis the season. I don't know. And the old color forms, I guess, don't stick. You know, isn't that weird that they ever did stick? Is weird. Oh, well, it was so much fun being with you tonight. Take a look out on Ribbon Candy Hooking. I have lots of great things out there, including the elephant in the room. She's out there as a yarn kit. And it says in the description, if you want to punch it, just let me know, because I haven't blocked it yet, obviously. If you want to punch it, I'll reverse it for you. And if it doesn't matter to you, who cares? But you can just get the pattern as well, and then you could do it as yarn or punch. If you get it as a yarn kit, it comes with 16 colors at least, right? Including that bright pink for the body, and all the sort of swirls and everything drawn around it, right? Each one is a little bit unique and different, but it all has that feel to it. So look at the new products, look at the classes, make sure that you're signed up for Paul Klee for the Fairy Tales class. And remember that on Sunday, I will be logging on live for the Willow Weep for Me hook in from beginning to end. So whether or not you have the kit, I think it starts at 4. I will probably be on for 3 hours hooking that, between 2 and 3 hours. So it's going to be a beginning to end. It's a great opportunity to chat with me exactly this same way, ask questions, make jokes, give me some trivia questions. I'm going to be working on hooking Willow Weep for Me. There's a few small pennies, like penny rug pennies at the bottom of the willow tree. So there's a couple different parts to it. But I will be hooking that live from beginning to end. So if you are at a loose end for something to do on Wednesday, you can join me. Just check the time, but I think it's at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I will be there hooking. I will be in another room in the studio hooking, and I will love seeing you if you have time to log on. It is recorded, so you can watch it afterward. And otherwise, have a happy weekend. I will look forward to seeing you on Sunday, and I will be with you. I'll be with you Monday, either to do more fairy tales or to do the Celtic book. Haven't decided yet. I'll see what we have time for. Have a great weekend, everybody. Thumbs up. Thank you. Like, comment, share, subscribe, everything. I'm supposed to say ring the bell. Somebody asked me how to ring the bell, and I said, I don't know. I don't know how to ring the bell. So I don't know. But yes, and Patreon members, thank you so much for all of your support. This was my day today. This was the best part of my day today. This was like 4 or 5 hours of content doing this 2 hour show. So thank you so much for your support because it takes a lot of time out of the business when I run shows, and I love running shows.